This is the video I promised for the Andrew Schep's rear bus setup, which is something we looked at in the last class of the mix and arrangement module this year, and it is an advanced parallel processing technique devised by famous, prominent mix engineer Andrew Scheps, and it's actually surprisingly simple to set up and offers a number of positive elements to the mix. It does a specific job, but it also alongside that adds several characteristics to your mix which are beneficial. Firstly, before we move on, I want to thank Edward Sampson for allowing me to use the track. He is BIM alumni from a year or so ago, I think. He's graduated last year, and or the year before last, in fact. And we released this track in 2018, and we're working again this year. But if you like it, if you're interested in Edward, then go have a look. But thanks again, Edward, for letting us do that. The track itself is a kind of sort of pop-ish tune, vocal-led pop tune, but there's an element of size in the production that is wanted, and sometimes that can be difficult to get the vocal to have that pop prominence, and not be bullied, or not be bullied out of the mix, but then also not overpower the mix and make everything else sound weak. This particular trick is really good for addressing that and keeping that balance as it should be. That said, it's not specific to this kind of pop music. It works really well with everything from heavy music to jazz. I've used this on folk music where I want the violin melodic part to cut through. This is really good for hip hop vocals if you want them to sit into a production and just make a little bit of space for themselves. The principle of this is that instead of trying to push the vocal up above the mix and then ruin any kind of bus processing schematic that you have going on, this will allow you, or this will make the music itself move out of the way of the vocal by pushing it down and allowing the vocal, or whatever you want, the hook or the solo, for example, to have the prominence it needs in the track. So let's look at this. In fact, let's play a bit of the track first. This is the mix. I'm going to play it from the bridge, but when it gets to this chorus section over here, you can hear that the vocal starts to get a little bullied out of the equation, and but if I turn it up too far, it makes the instrument sound too small. It just makes the production sound a little more, diminishes the production size. So let's have a quick listen. Kind of sitting fine here, the vocal, but the toms need to be big in this section. That's what was wanted, but the vocal's getting bullied, especially here in the chorus. I really don't want the vocal to sit much higher than that above the mix, but there I just feel it just doesn't feel important enough. And this trick is the best of both worlds. It's going to keep the music powerful and big and prominent in the mix, but make room for the vocal when needed. So here's the setup. You're going to add this rear bus processing to everything apart from the drums. So we're sending all of the music. Let's mute the drums for the time being. So I'll activate or reactivate these rear bus sends. So you just add those, and they are being sent to this purple bus over here. And on this bus, you apply compression. And the compression setting is usually sort of, as stated, compressor settings rather than limiting settings. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't experiment with the limiting settings. It tends to be more aggressive. The more subtle the track, the lower the compression ratio I've found seems to work. The attack and release need to be as quick as possible. This is because you just want it to react to the vocal in a moment and then come back or reset as quickly as possible. The input setting I'll come back to. I'll show you where they should be sitting, certainly in this instance anyway, but yeah, we'll come back to those in just a bit. So firstly, let's look at the input levels we're sending to this rear bus. The first, I mean, as they are at the minute, they are matching the, you can see they're kind of matching the fader settings that I've got going on for the to the main sends. That's the guitar one, here's the synth one, and first and foremost you can see those three are at the same settings. Now if I put the vocal one up, that is also the same. Here is where the key to the trick is. The bass will make this compression setting overreact, and it will respond too much to the bass. Compressors or compressor detectors, as we've spoken about many times in the module, react far more quickly to bass frequencies than we perceive them. Look up the notes on the Fletcher-Munson curve if you want to know why. So what we're going to do is reduce the level. So the level of send to the master bus is -5.7. This is where it sits on this auxiliary send at the minute. I'm just going to reduce that to -8.7. So I'm going to send 3 dB less of the bass to this compressor. Any other instrumentation sitting in the mid-range is going to be fine. Leave that at the same level or parity to what's going to the master bus. The vocal, I'm going to send 3 dB more of the vocal to this bus, this auxiliary bus. So that's going to be upwards of -1.9. So I'm just going to send a bit more. I want the compressor to work harder when it hears the vocal. So we'll come back to those in a second. So here's what the rear bus sounds like. I'm going to have to turn the vocal off first. I've just turned the vocal send to the rear bus off, and we'll have a quick listen to how the rear bus sounds. There's only the bass and the tails going on here, but all it's going to be doing is gluing these things together. So now the music's back in, and you can see that the input setting, I want this to be somewhere around the -3 to 5 level. So when the chorus kicks in, we'll have a look. Right, not quite enough yet. I'm going to push the inputs. Now, you may hear some ducking going on. There is some side chaining stuff going on between snares and guitars and kick and bass guitar. But when the music is playing in this chorus section, let me put it back in here. You can see that the compressor is sitting at that -3 to -5 setting, right? So I'm happy with that. When the vocal comes in, however, I want this to be dramatically reduced. So when the vocal kicks in, you'll see that the compressor works even harder. You can see that's pushing to -7 to -9. That's what I want it to do. I want the vocal to duck the music in this rear bus. Once we have that, I mean, here is how I set this up initially. I set the balance of the rear bus. Once I've got that balance between instruments and the vocal doing more work in the rear bus, I'll turn the vocal out, turn it off of the rear bus again, and then I will balance the rear bus against the music so that the music is being supported, or the instrumentation is being supported by the rear bus. So what you can hear is it's parallel processing of the instrumentation. I mean, it's adding a little excitement. This compressor is known for doing that. It's an 1176. It harmonically distorts in the high mids. It can add that kind of bite and aggression that you need, or that can benefit the mix. So when the vocal comes back in, you can hear that the vocal makes a bit more space for itself. It is a side chaining procedure, but it's side chaining with a little more effect in there. It's like as with side chaining, the volume comes back up afterwards, but the additional benefits are this gluing effect, this combining of the bass, guitar, synth, whatever instrumentation you've got going on, combining that inside a compressor is giving it a much more common overtone and creating this internal dialogue inside a mix that I like to talk about. The one side effect is obviously because we're now supporting this music, the drums require a little extra volume in order to sit in the balance as they were before. So all I'll do when I bring the drums back in is just push them up until they have the energy they need. And as you can see, like just when the vocal comes in, it pushes this compressor down further and then it's supporting the guitars. But if you listen really carefully, I'll play it from the middle section again. You can just hear in the spaces in between the vocal, the instrumentation just moves forward into prominence again and then just sits back as the vocal needs it to. If you get the concept of this and you can make this work, this will really quickly help your mix kind of start to mix itself. It will just mean that it brings the things that you want in focus into focus without having to push them forward. You're kind of making everyone make way. But let me play it from a little earlier on again, through this mid section into the bridge, and you'll hear right towards the end the vocal maintains its prominence throughout, even though the production into chorus 4 over here gets even louder. Thanks Pro Tools for the hardware buffer breakage there, but there you go. Hopefully you'll see the benefits of that. Any questions on a postcard? Briefly though, just a recap of that setup. Add the rear bus as an auxiliary send from every channel except the drums. Then add the compression to that bus, blend in. The bass is being fed 3 to 5 dB quieter. Anything with any sub information needs to come down on the sends, and then the vocal 3 to 5 dB higher into the compressor so that it ducks down, and then blend that in. Hope that makes sense. Answers on questions, email me. I'll try and explain it deeper if you need me to. Good luck with that, and take care now. Bye bye.